All right, buckle up, everyone, because this deep dive is going to take us places. We're exploring out-of-body experiences, and we're going right to the source, the OG, Robert Monroe's journeys out of the body.
A classic.
Absolutely. And this guy, he wasn't some, fringe mystic or anything. Robert Monroe, he was a broadcasting pioneer, a total tech and science guy.
Yeah, he was like the last person you'd expect to have, well, these kinds of experiences.
Exactly. But then, boom, it hit him.
And that's what makes it so fascinating, right? He was a skeptic, a very rational guy, but what happened to him was just undeniable.
I mean, imagine this. You're living your life, maybe tinkering in the garage with some new gadget or something, and suddenly, wham, intense vibrations, the feeling of like your arm sinking right through the floor.
Oh, yeah, he describes those early experiences in detail.
It's wild. I mean, what would you even think was happening?
Well, at first he thought maybe it was a medical thing,
Yeah.
Tried to find a rational explanation. He went to doctors, had tests, nothing added up.
So, okay, no easy answers there. Then what happened?
Well, eventually it all culminated in his first, like, full-blown out-of-body experience.
That's the moment, right?
Yeah. He's suddenly floating above his own body, the shock, the fear, the total disorientation. It's like, whoa, what's going on?
I can only imagine that must have been terrifying.
Oh, totally. And for him, it was a turning point. He realized, okay, this is something way beyond anything conventional science can explain.
And that's where he starts talking about the second body.
Right. He coins that term to describe this non-physical form that seems to operate independently from our physical body.
And he didn't just have one kind of out-of-body experience, right? He had all these different types, which he categorized as locales.
Yeah, like different realms of existence, each with its own unique characteristics.
So locale, that's like our everyday world.
Right, the physical reality we're all familiar with.
But then there's locale 10, this kind of non-physical afterlife zone.
Yeah, and Locale the Second is where he encounters all sorts of strange beings and phenomena. Like, he describes a place of meeting for the recently deceased, a target army of entities waiting for assignments. He even experienced an attack in some kind of high-tech city.
Well, hold on. A target army, an attack, okay, that sounds intense. And then there's locale the third.
Oh yeah, Locale the Third is where it gets really wild. It's another physical reality, but with a completely different history, like an alternate timeline.
Yeah.
Like steam locomotives powered by these weird hot containers, wider roads, totally different cars and customs.
Let's stepping into a sci-fi movie.
Totally. He even encounters his other self living a parallel life.
So wait, he meets another version of himself.
Yeah, a version of him living a different life in this alternate reality. It's wild stuff.
My mind is blown. But okay, let's go back to the beginning for a sec. Before he's traveling to these different locales, he talks about this reverse image technique.
Ah, yes. This was key for her.
So what is it exactly?
Well, he describes this mental exercise where he has to rotate his consciousness 180 degrees.
And that's what leads him to this hole in reality, right?
Yeah, he describes it as a void, a portal to other dimensions, maybe.
And through this hole, he encounters, well, things get pretty strange, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Discarnate hands, mysterious messages, even this hook that digs into his non-physical hand. It's all very surreal, symbolic, open to interpretation.
It's like he's tapping into something beyond our normal understanding of reality, right?
Absolutely. It raises questions about perception, the limits of our senses, and the possibility of, well, realities beyond our comprehension.
All right, I need a minute to process all this. But before we do, let's talk about the beings he encountered during his OBEs. I mean, this adds a whole other layer of intrigue, right?
Oh, for sure. He describes encounters with entities that seem intelligent, purposeful. Some are helpful, like the one that helped him fly uphill during an OBE. But then there are others, like these creepy suckers that attach to him that raise the possibility of danger or negative entities in these realms.
Oh man, the suckers. That sounds creepy. And then there's that weird message he gets, right? For pure psychic results, take 6 drops of a chemical in a glass of water.
Yeah, what does that even mean? It's classic Monroe. Just enough information to pique your curiosity, but no clear answers.
That's like a riddle wrapped in an enigma. But okay, before we lose ourselves in that rabbit hole, let's talk about his precognitive abilities. I mean, this is where it gets really mind-bending.
Oh yeah, this is where the whole concept of time gets thrown out the window.
He describes having these vivid visions of future events.
Yeah.
And it's not just a vague feeling, it's very specific details, right?
Yeah, and it's always preceded by this distinct sound, like an air hiss, and the feeling of a valve opening in his mind.
And the plane crash vision, that's got to be one of the most striking examples, right?
Oh, absolutely. He sees the entire sequence of events leading up to the crash, his escape before impact, even the specific way the wreckage burns. It's incredibly detailed and chillingly accurate.
Okay, so if he's seeing the future, does that mean time isn't linear like we think it is? I mean, what does that even mean for our understanding of reality?
It's a big question, and it's one of the many that Monroe's experiences force us to grapple with. It challenges our fundamental assumptions about time, perception, and the nature of reality itself.
So after all these experiences, what did Monroe ultimately conclude about consciousness, life, and death? Did he have any answers?
Well, he came to believe that consciousness is definitely not confined to the physical body. He became convinced that this second body is real, that it survives physical death, and that personality and character, they continue to exist in this non-physical form.
So he's basically saying we don't just cease to exist when we die.
Right, he saw death as a transition, not an end.
And what about his views on prayer? I know he explores that in the book too.
Yeah, he actually came to question the effectiveness of traditional prayer, suggesting it might have lost its original meaning and power. And his encounters with individuals who had passed away, like his doctor and his father, really challenged traditional views of the afterlife.
That's fascinating. So he's really pushing us to rethink everything we thought we knew about, well, existence itself.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of his work. He's not just presenting a set of beliefs, he's inviting us to question, to explore, to remain open to the possibility that there's so much more to reality than we currently understand.
It's like he's saying, don't just take my word for it. Go out there and explore for yourself.
Yeah, and he provides us with tools and techniques to do just that.
Well, before we move on to the next part of our deep dive, I want to hear what stood out to you from all this. What really resonated?
For me, it's the sheer detail in Monroe's accounts. He kept meticulous notes, tried to verify information he received while out of body. It's that attention to detail, that scientific mindset that adds a layer of credibility to his experiences.
Yeah, I agree. It's like he's saying, look, I'm not just making this stuff up. I'm approaching this as a researcher, as a scientist.
Exactly. He wanted to understand what was happening to him, and by documenting it so thoroughly, he invites us to explore these possibilities alongside him.
And he also talks about the importance of overcoming fear, right?
Oh, absolutely. He saw fear as the main obstacle to exploring the second state, but he believed it could be overcome through gradual exposure and a willingness to confront those anxieties.
Makes sense. I mean, facing the unknown can be scary, but it can also be incredibly liberating. And he believed everyone has this potential, right?
Yeah, he didn't see these abilities as unique to him. He believed everyone has a second body, that the potential for these experiences exists within all of us. Which begs the question, what might the future hold for research and exploration in this field?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if we can learn to access these other realms of existence, what could we discover? What could we learn about ourselves, about the universe? The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the most valuable takeaways from Monroe's work. He opens our minds to the vastness of the unknown, to the potential that lies within each of us. He inspires us to question, to explore, and to never stop seeking.
And before we move on to the next part, there's one more thing that really stuck with me. Monroe's descriptions of Locale the Third, this parallel physical reality with a different history, different technology, it's just mind-blowing.
It really is. And it raises so many questions. If Locale the Third is real, where does it exist? How does it connect to our reality? Can we travel there intentionally? It's a whole rabbit hole of exploration just waiting to be discovered.
And what about those intelligent beings he encountered in Locale the Second? Were they real entities, symbolic representations, or projections of his own mind? I mean, these are questions that touch on the very nature of consciousness, the boundaries between self and other, the subjective and the objective.
And that's the beauty of Monroe's work. He doesn't offer easy answers. He invites us to contemplate these mysteries, to explore the unknown, and to remain open to the possibility that there's much more to reality than we currently understand. It's like, he goes beyond just describing these like crazy adventures.
Right.
He actually tries to, make sense of them. Like he's connecting these really personal experiences to like bigger ideas about energy and consciousness. You can really see his like scientific mind trying to grapple with it all.
Yeah, totally. It's not just a collection of weird stories. He's really trying to figure something out here.
Right. And this concept of the third force, that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, the third course, that's a big one.
And it's not some mystical, woo-woo stuff. He tries to relate it to things we understand, like electricity and magnetism.
Right, he's trying to ground it in, like, some sort of scientific framework.
Exactly. Like there's this energy that's fundamental to how the second body works, maybe even to thought itself. It's almost like, he's saying there's a missing piece in our understanding of physics.
Missing piece, wow.
And you remember that experiment with the Faraday cage?
Oh, yeah, where he tried to, like, block out electromagnetic fields.
Exactly. He wanted to see if he could, move his second body through this shielded space. And guess what? He couldn't.
So what does that mean?
Well, it suggests that this third force, whatever it is, might be connected to or affected by electromagnetic fields.
Okay, so we're not talking about ghosts here. We're talking about something that might actually be measurable, maybe even, like, harnessed someday.
Right, and that's what makes this all so fascinating. It's not just a bunch of, spooky tales. He's pushing us to think about physics, energy, consciousness in a whole new way.
It's like he's opening a door to a whole new realm of scientific inquiry.
And that's, ultimately what makes Monroe's work so valuable. He challenges us to expand our understanding of reality, to consider possibilities that might seem, crazy at first.
Yeah, he's saying, hey, there's more to the universe than we currently understand. Don't be afraid to question, to explore, to keep an open mind.
Exactly. He dared to go beyond what we know, to explore these uncharted territories of consciousness. And he showed us that it's okay to question, to probe the edges of what's possible.
So after diving into journeys out of the body, we've seen these different types of OBEs, explored the concept of the second body, encountered these, like, strange localis, and pondered the existence of this mysterious third force. And, well, I think it's safe to say Monroe's experiences raise some pretty big questions about, who we are and what this reality really is.
It really does make you wonder, right? Like, if experiences like this are real, then what does that mean for how we understand ourselves, our potential, the nature of the universe? Are we just, scratching the surface of what's possible?
It's a big question, and I don't think there are any easy answers. But that's the beauty of it, right? It keeps us searching, keeps us exploring.
Absolutely. And maybe, just maybe, exploring these ideas, revisiting the book, it might even inspire some of us to try some of the techniques Monroe outlines. After all, he believed these abilities are within all of us.
It's like he's not just telling us these stories, he's trying to figure out, like, what does it all mean? What does this mean for us?
Oh, yeah, totally. He's always looking for the bigger picture, trying to connect those personal experiences to these huge questions about, consciousness, the universe, the whole shebang.
And this third force idea, that's a big one, right? It's like, it's not just this mystical energy. He's actually trying to relate it to stuff we understand.
Right, like electricity and magnetism. He's grounding it in, real science.
Yeah, exactly.
But
It's almost like, there's this piece of the puzzle we're missing, a force we haven't quite figured out yet.
like our current understanding of physics is incomplete.
And remember that experiment he did with the Faraday cage?
Oh, yeah, trying to block out those electromagnetic fields.
Yeah, and he couldn't get his second body to move through it.
Which is wild, right? It
Yeah.
kind of hints that this third force, whatever it is somehow connected to those fields.
So we're not talking about ghosts or anything. We're talking about something that, like, maybe could be studied, measured, maybe even harnessed somehow.
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing. I mean, it's like he's pointing towards a whole new area of science where consciousness and physics, totally intertwine.
I mean, it makes you wonder, right? What else is out there? What else don't we know?
And that's what's so great about Monroe's work. He's like, hey, don't be afraid to question everything. Explore the unknown. Keep an open mind.
Yeah, exactly. He shows us it's okay to challenge what we think we know about reality.
And that's his legacy, He dared to explore the stuff that most people wouldn't even touch.
He went beyond the known, pushed those boundaries.
And left us with a whole bunch of questions to ponder.
Well, I think it's safe to say we've done a pretty deep dive into the world of Robert Monroe and out-of-body experiences, right? Journeys Out of the Body. It's a book that definitely sticks with you.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about who we are, what this reality is all about.
We've covered the different kinds of OBEs, the whole second body concept, those crazy locales, the mysterious third force. But this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore. I mean, go back and revisit the book, see what jumps out at you.
Maybe even try some of those techniques Monroe talks about for exploring the second state.
But remember, approach it all with respect. These are powerful experiences.
Yeah. Be careful out there.
But for those who are drawn to these mysteries, who are willing to take the journey, it can be incredibly rewarding.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep an open mind. Who knows what you might discover?